not every one of those 77 people like each other, frankly. And it'd be weird if they did. Frankly, like, it would be weird if they did, you know? And honestly, like, the vibes were close. Close enough to creating that illusion, but it's just that you're not going to get that with 77 people.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Chaos Radio. This is the story of 80 artists from around the world experimenting in collective creation.
We launched a project summer of 2022 where we created 21,000 unique music NFTs under the shared artist name Chaos, birthed from Song Camp, a little family of music and love in Web3.
Our community of makers is called Camp Chaos, and here at Camp, we believe the most exciting part of this project is the making of it.
You've seen the process of our creating chaos, the trials, the tribulations, the music, the value flow. Now get ready to experience the launch event.
Will we harness the power of chaos?
Or be consumed by chaos? I'm Iara.
And I'm LosA. Have a seat and let the story of the chaos launch unfold. On our last episode, you might remember some of the more spicy moments as Chaos transitioned into release mode. If you don't recall, take a look back at episode 6 of Chaos Radio. On a Zoom call talking about Web2 splits for a potential Web2 rollout of the Chaos catalog, we learned that some Chaos members felt that the value flow experiment within our headless band was a failure.
And sure, it's an experiment, but in my opinion, it was a failure.
As promised, in today's episode, we're diving deep into this very conflict. In the months since these value flow issues and hot takes first arose in July of 2022, after we launched Chaos, we've been doing interviews, group conversations, getting to the heart, the nitty-gritty of what went down, what was really happening, and why did this come out post-launch and not before. Stick around because we will answer these questions and more with a goal of sharing what we've learned along the way in hopes that the next headless band or large project of this caliber can build on and improve what Chaos started.
But, of course, there were more things than this conflict going on over the last several months. So, in segment 2, we will cover the NYC event in 2022, the LA event in 2022, the proposal system and CCO spinoff, and if you stick around to the end, we have a little bonus segment about what's coming up next for Chaos at NFT NYC this year, aka, what is Club Chaos? Now, segment 1, the big contention. Because so much of this contention is centered around the value flow of Camp Chaos, we need to first catch you up to speed on all the numbers. The money, that sweet, juicy Ethereum that split to us in June of 2022.
If you listened to our last episode, by about mid-June of 2022, Chaos earnings had grown to about 400 ETH, which at the time was more than 600,000 US dollars. And if you remember, that big bag of money was split up based on how we voted for each other's contributions during camp through the tool called Coordinate. If you're building a large project and want some ideas on how to build out your value flow system using Web3 tools, listen back to episode 2 of Chaos Radio for all our value flow design details. In short, we all decided how much equity we thought each other deserved, which then created a split percentage that was locked in right before the public launch of Chaos.
So, back in June, the $600,000 from pack sales were sitting in a splits contract. Shout out to Abram and Will from OX Splits for building this. To receive their funds, each Chaos member just had to sign in with their wallet and claim their share based on their split percentage. So, if you had, say, 1% of the split, then sitting in an account waiting for you to claim was about $6,000 worth of ETH.
Which is what... I'm about to send 4 more. Someone just bought like 20 packs.
Someone just bought what?
like 20 more packs. So I gotta send more ETH to the split.
All right.
Yes, thanks.
Should we wait?
Yes.
Maybe we'll-
Yeah, just wait a second.
All right.
There'll be another like 10 grand coming.
Okay, so as that's happening, fuck yeah.
Yo, that was a crazy memory, especially to be on the receiving end as a Chaos member. To paint the picture in even more detail, the amount of ETH at the time was fluctuating daily, not only because people were buying more Chaos packs, because they were, but also due to the financial crisis and increasingly bear market for Ethereum. As we now know, by the time folks had already claimed their funds, and as we started moving into the Web 2 rollout discussions, we abruptly learned that there were a handful of Chaos members who were unhappy with the Web 3 split. From what they shared on group calls, it really came down to the distance in split percentages when comparing operation roles to music-making roles. Remember, not all of the 77 artists in Camp Chaos were musicians. We had artists that were developers, guides, economists, visual designers, operations folks, and podcast producers, aka us. But in terms of a largest cohort, most of the camp were in the musician category.
And the splits in question were between operators, ops, compared to musicians. Let's do a little refresh. The 45 humans who applied and were curated to the role of musician had the task to make 3 songs over the course of 6 weeks. To learn more about the structure and design of how we did this, listen back to episode 3 and 4 of Chaos Radio. The split percentage, when isolated to just those 45 music makers, was about an average of 0.8% of Chaos sales. Now, let's take a look at the team of 5 core operators. These are the people who either juggled multiple roles while in camp and or had been building the idea and infrastructure of Camp Chaos, in some cases for about 6 months prior to camp. When isolating their percentage, the ops average split was 1.89% of Chaos sales. And again, 0.8% of Chaos sales average split for 45 musicians versus 1.89% of Chaos sales average split for 5 operators, which is where we heard some of those spicy takes in the last episode.
Wait, I'm sorry, brother. I got to cut you off. Skin in the game is way different than 3 times what the artist made.
So on the day when we hit distribute to the OX split contract, sending about $600,000 to the split, the average operator received about $12,000, and the average music maker received about $4,000. And again, this number on paper, if you don't have any other context, might look unfair. And it can remind us of the traditional Web 2 music industry world where we hear constant stories of labels, publishers, higher-ups taking all or most of a music artist's income.
I just want to jump in on that really quick.
That's Snacks, a music producer in Camp Chaos for the Alchemy team, sharing why he had concerns about the splits on a camp-wide call. Snacks has a lot of experience in the traditional music industry, so pay attention.
I mean, I came into Web3 to be valued higher than I was valued in Web2. And this is not to take away anything from people that are literally inventing new ways in Web3 to do things. But I think the rub here is that, a lot of artists were potentially expecting that they were going to be, valued higher for their work than the admin people that in the old music industry were taking bigger slices of the pie than the people making the music.
And going through, as we all have heard, the deep wounds and horrors of Web 2, it brings up feelings that, like, let me get to Web 3, a new space to try new things, this artist-friendly world, the community collective.
That's John Hart, an artist and Chaos member, also chiming in and sharing his perspective on a camp-wide call after the split concerns were raised.
But just as an artist, me digesting the information, when I took a look at the splits, and I do agree the Web 2 conversation is so emotional, because I think when the dust settled and it was all said and done, it seems as if those splits on Web 3 reflected things that we've experienced on Web 2.
And to me, now speaking personally, a part of me is like, oh shit, like damn, are the allocations like equitable to all? And also, does it value the amount of work that was put into the project?
That's Mark Rodito, core team member of Song Camp, an operator for Chaos, and an artist, reflecting on this conflict several months later.
Man, that was challenging for me. And speaking from my point of view, where I poured so much into this project, worked so hard to gain the trust of everyone involved and to support folks, and seeing things from their perspective. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, and I also understand the trauma that all of us artists go through or have experienced, where our work is devalued and royalties are like pennies. And I get that, and I understand that because I experienced that too. But it felt like those traumas started sort of like unfolding and sort of like influencing people in their perception of the project, which I understand, but also made me sad a little bit,
I think I would summarize the conflict around the splits and the revelations around salaries as being kind of a contraction from this space that we were all living in of abundance and opportunity and supporting one another back into more of a scarcity mindset when brought back into terms of how the music industry functions now, where it can be really difficult to get paid and people are taken advantage of a lot.
Megan Kinney, an artist and musician in Chaos.
It was a moment where I think we were reminded of all of the wounds that artists face constantly. And it's like what happens sometimes when people get triggered and it's like the claws come out. And I think that's kind of what happened. Though it was hard to find out that people felt not thrilled on all the work that had been done and the differences in the splits. I think it was a really important moment for the growth of Chaos.
So it really was a mixed bag with the split concerns raised.
But I definitely thought that was pretty brutal to call this project a failure. And I just think a little bit of the bigger scope got lost on some of the people.
Chaos guide Josh Lippy.
Because if you're arguing that one group, whether it be musician or dev or whatever, is, it takes so much to do one, and you're kind of demeaning what it takes for the others to do it, you're missing the whole point. It seemed like the energy was just like the musicians got screwed energy, and it was like, if you're already coming into it thinking like it's all about the musicians and you're not seeing the big picture, you're like in the wrong camp.
With the goal in mind for improving future projects, we wanted to make sure to hear out the concerns and ask why these contentions were raised after the launch of Chaos and not as much during camp. We all voted on the split distribution, and we had access to see where the splits were at all times during camp. We even had the power to change the split based on our votes every 2 weeks on Coordinape, and yet no one seemed to raise those concerns during camp office hours or in other moments while we were all collectively voting on the splits in question.
We had open office hours to sort of really get the sense of where people's minds and hearts are in terms of the value flow. Okay, how do we modify this according to group sentiment? And yeah, later on finding out that, this didn't work for some people or some folks. There are opportunities for any member to reach out and talk one-on-one and say their truth. Why didn't you take that opportunity? And maybe a context there is that I had conversations with some of them, and the conversations were cool, were good, and then later on finding out, oh shit, you were carrying that, dude? I didn't know, man. So why didn't you take that opportunity? Or why didn't you reach out to me?
Tapping into what Mark is getting at here, why was there an aversion to talking about conflicting opinions, thoughts, or concerns during camp? A lot of us know Song Camp as a positive, good vibe space that is accepting towards anyone who shows up. But much like the real world, sometimes positivity and hype can feel like a closed door when there's an opposing or conflicting thought arising.
I guess I also just want to say that
I'm not surprised that this hasn't come out till now, and I'm not surprised that it couldn't.
Artist and guide and curator for Camp Chaos, Will Jerkins.
What are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you gonna do if you have 2 days before the thing's about to launch? And if you are someone who wants to see the thing ship, you're gonna keep those feelings to yourself.
I think sometimes too, Chaos and Songcamp as a whole has a culture of positivity, right? That's really beautiful. It's one of the many reasons why so many of us are attracted to the community, right?
Artist and Chaos musician, Rosalie.
Anyone's greatest strength has the possibility of being their greatest weakness. So for example, in this case, one of Songcamp's and Chaos's like greatest strength is how welcoming and warm and positive and beautiful the community is, right? The underbelly of that, like the downside of that can be, it can feel hard to speak up to something that might feel critical or might feel concerning when you are really trying to be warm and welcoming and positive.
So there's this underlying momentum that made it difficult for folks to speak up. Then this is true for any group of people, not just Chaos. But because of the more decentralized nature of what we were building in Chaos, it can be argued that the accountability and responsibility is just higher than normal. Accountability from both the operators to uncover these difficult feelings and address them as quickly as possible, and accountability for the individual member to notice earlier on if something didn't look or feel right, or to bring it up to the attention of their peers. Also, a very important factor in play here is that we're building Chaos using Web3 tools, which means the perceived success of the release was very much connected to the price of ETH. And as some of you remember, spring 2022 was a bit of a rough ride.
One of the things that I think is unsaid and unspoken is like, the project launched and like ETH completely crashed.
Cody, who goes by My World.
Like, so everybody's payment got cut in half immediately, and while camp was going on, ETH was like 3K. Like ETH was like 3.3K. Like, you got to think that everybody's ideation of what they were going to make was roughly 3 times what they ended up getting. Like, not considering the actual splits.
The ETH price crash definitely wasn't the only factor in the changing feels around the Chaos equity splits. But that sudden reduction in take-home value definitely couldn't have helped the situation either.
Okay, so the large split difference between musicians and operators was one issue brought to the group by a few music makers in camp. And unfortunately, at the very same time, the split concern was layered on with another issue, the lack of transparency around that same operation team's salaries. That same handful of folks whom we voted on having the highest splits percentage were also simultaneously receiving a salary from Songcamp, which some alumni members of Songcamp knew, while newer members did not. There was great communication and transparency during camp from the core team to the rest of camp, but unfortunately, this key information about team salaries wasn't made readily available to a lot of camp members.
When the project was kicked off, we were walked through like the ins and outs of every aspect of the project. We had office hours, I think twice a week to ask questions. In fact, the operations team did a remarkable job with communicating all those details, right? It was incredibly impressive.
Here's Rosalie talking about why the salary transparency issue had a negative impact.
So when such a pivotal piece of information was not shared with everybody, I think a lot of people felt hurt and confused by how something that was really important wasn't shared when everything else was so transparent.
Let's rewind a bit. So to give you some context, a month or so before Camp Chaos started, Songcamp, the parent organization for Chaos, called all previous camp alumni onto a call and gave them some exciting updates. They teased Camp Chaos and announced some other very important news, including that the core team completed a successful fundraise and would be using some of those funds to expand their team and pay salaries for the building and planning they were doing for the next camp and beyond. There were about 30 to 40 folks on this call, including myself. A few of whom went on to join Camp Chaos in either the behind-the-scenes roles or on the alchemy team, so most of Camp Chaos was new and wasn't on this call and did not hear about these salaries. I was on that call, like I said, and brought on as a newly initiated core member, getting ready to start with Songcamp and Chaos very soon after that call.
Our treasury is on the blockchain.
That's Sarmad, aka Gradient, a Songcamp core team member and part of the operations team for Chaos.
So if people wanted to see our salary, they could. It's not the same as being like, here's our salary, but it's public in a way, like we're operating in public. So there was this feeling of like, we're not hiding stuff, but then equally could be said, if you weren't hiding stuff, why didn't you just state it out loud? And that's where I think the mistake was made of like not doing that.
Like Gradient said, the exact compensation amount during Camp Chaos was never made explicitly public, but the funds were openly and transparently distributed on the blockchain. While we don't feel it's fair to out the individual's exact pay on here publicly, we will say that the salaries ranged from about $2,500 to $10,000 per month. Which, if you take the perspective of Songcamp being a mid-sized business that created more than $500,000 in sales within a few months, that's actually a quite normal compensation. At the heart, the concerns raised weren't so much about what people were getting paid, it was more so about the lack of transparency and knowledge of the payment during camp. Because this piece of information could have informed how Chaos members distributed their funds through Coordinape. Many of the 77 members of Chaos weren't on that alumni call. They weren't alumni yet. Chaos was their very first Songcamp project. So there was this asymmetry of information within camp. And for several of the people who were already feeling the Chaos split percentage was not fair, at the same time, they were confronted, like literally in the same moment, they were confronted with this new info that the team at the top of the split range were also getting a salary every month from the parent organization running Camp Chaos. For them, and even for folks who were happy with the existing split, this new information was a surprise.
And I actually assumed I was the only person who didn't know. I thought I must have missed it somewhere.
That's Yahtzee, also known as Max, an artist and alchemist in Chaos.
When we're all giving each other the give for Coordinate, people assumed, myself included for the first couple weeks, that everyone had all the same information, that we all saw the entire picture. And people are just finding out that was never true.
That wouldn't have been a problem if it weren't for the fact that we were also involved in another experiment within the camp where we were self-paying, right?
Shamanic, an artist and alchemist in Chaos, points out that the salary information, combined with the way we were doing splits, was a factor in why this all became a bigger problem.
The network was allocating give tokens to people within it that in the end dictated how much of the project share people would get. That was an extremely wholesome experience. I still hold on to the kind of wholesome experience that I found that to be. And initially, I think most people didn't see that contention or didn't really see that issue, such that it felt less divided across the whole camp. However, as we got a bit deeper in and that payment of operators within the camp was made more explicit, then I think more people started to realize and think, hang on a minute, yes, maybe this is a potential of a broken incentive there. People operating in the camp are being paid, so they therefore have the time, energy, and resources to be more visible in the camp. That has the potential to lead to a perverse incentive.
And I'm also reading the comments, and I read a comment that said, well, if I would have known that, there were being salaries given out, that would have changed the way I would have gave my give tokens. And I feel the same way.
That's John Hart again on that camp-wide call shortly after lunch, sharing how the salary information changes how he felt about the bi-weekly split voting.
So I'm wondering, with the new information and in the open forum, because I believe everything should just be transparent, is this something with the new information that allows us, I guess, address and figure out the Web3 split so that everybody can feel fairly compensated now?
I personally was not aware that some of the operators had a salary. So when that was brought up, like, to me, that was a bit of a surprise.
That's Violetta, an artist and musician in Chaos.
I will say I may have allocated my tokens like slightly differently if I did have the information of the salaries that like certain people are on salary.
Because not everyone knew who was receiving a song camp salary and who wasn't, the people who didn't know never had the opportunity to include that in their decision-making while voting for compensation using the biweekly give tokens. Well, it's also important to point out that given the amount of work and time that went into the pre-camp planning, the organization and execution during camp, and launching of such a large-scale project, it's not realistic to expect someone to be able to put in the kind of time and effort required to pull off such a large project without some form of upfront compensation. In fact, several Chaos members that weren't on the alumni call were actually relieved when they heard about the salaries.
Because I can also get the perspective of the certain lack of transparency as regards to the salary thing. But even when I found out, I was like, good, you guys are working crazy hard like you should be.
That's Chaos Guide and shredding guitar and bass player Josh Lippy.
Because this is like become a full-time job for the core members. Like, I don't have that much time. And if I had that much time to put in, I'd be getting paid more than just what was my equity in the thing. Like, I can understand that perspective. Like, even not knowing there was salary, then learning salary, I still was like, good, because you guys are fucking working your asses off. And as much as there's a group perspective and camp dynamic and equity, it's still like core people that it takes to do this.
Just like a light point about the salaries.
That's Niche, a regular contributor to several decentralized organizations and played a key dev role in Chaos.
And like any team that's a part of something like camp, they are given a salary. It's pretty standard that like if you're going to be putting in the amount of work that you guys put in, that you be getting some kind of solid pay. And so me personally, I don't care how much you guys got paid. Like, I trust you guys with that. And it has nothing to do with the funds that we received.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, I think about this all the time. Personally, when I found out, I was like, thank God, because in my mind, I was like, these people are doing all of this work.
Megan Kinney again, artist and musician in Camp Chaos. She also runs a sync licensing agency called Bad Owl Collective.
I think from being on the administrative side of things, like I function in both as an artist and both on the back end of things. And I kind of stepped into this role recognizing that on both sides, there is a deep misunderstanding of the context of the work that's being done and a deep misvaluing of both sides. And that leads to this crazy imbalance. I've been in the position of being afraid to tell the people, the artists that we're making money off of, that we need to make money. And so, like, you don't want to have to be begging to be like, I deserve to get paid. It happens on both sides of the coin, I think.
With the issues now plainly out in the open, and emotions running high, low, sideways, slantways, any which way, it became clear that something had to be done to directly address the transparency and split concerns raised.
I'm not saying that artists should get more than the dev, more than the visual artists, more than the admins. I'm also not saying that I feel that the songs mean more than any other role or part that was played in the camp. But I think what Matt said, there could have been more compression. I would agree with, I like that statement. I think it could have been more compression where everybody just feels like we're kind of all in this together as a community. Because I think when I look at the spreadsheet, the top to the bottom is very, very drastic. So we all have different backgrounds, and I'm not going to say the artist needs to be valued more. It could just be a little more compression.
So after pressing pause on the Web 2 rollout and after many, many, many group calls and some sleepless nights, the core team decided to put together a plan in response to the concerns raised. They presented their resolution plan on a camp-wide gathering.
What this does, essentially, is three things. It moves ETH, it moves percentage in the split from the primary sales, and it moves supercharged NFTs from the Songcamp treasury. In both these options, it moves the same amounts, the same value of each of those, 11% of pack sales. That 11% is made up of 7.2% from Songcamp treasury, and then the remainder is from the 50% slashes to us four. So that's kind of like added upon from the original proposal.
So the remaining core members pulled ETH from the Songcamp treasury and put it into a Chaos common pool. Essentially, a collectively controlled treasury that all members of Chaos could utilize via a proposal and voting system that was established. The core team also made an adjustment to the future-looking split percentage. They compressed the difference between the operation team and the musician splits for all future pack sales, cutting the core operations team members split in half and redistributing that share to the folks on the bottom of the split range. This governance system and the Chaos Common Pool funds were put to use for some pretty cool projects, including these most recent episodes of Chaos Radio. Thank you so much for funding us, as well as funding the creation of some Chaos merch and some very exciting live events. More on that on our next segment. It's hard to say if this completely resolved the issues raised. As my dear love, Lady Gaga once said, trust is like a mirror. If it breaks, you can repair it, but you'll still see the cracks. Depending on which Chaos member you ask, you will likely get different answers. Everybody has their own story and history, but what most everyone had in common was being glad that we were having these tough as hell conversations, especially in a traditionally conflict-averse world. Karma, who was an alchemist musician in Chaos, summarized it pretty nicely.
It's a tough situation, but definitely what was mentioned around the fact that we were having these conversations in open and people were talking it out, like that itself was new, right? Because I think in the traditional structure, these things don't happen like that. You have all the legal in between. You have people creating documents in a certain way, so the language is like optimized for a certain party. And I don't think the intentions here, and it really does come down to intentions, were negative on anyone's part.
So, when it's all said and done, what did we learn from this experience? Are there any learnings we can share for the future headless bands to take what we did and make it even better? Stick around to hear from Chaos members on the key takeaways from this moment of discord within Chaos.
If I were to summarize the tension that kind of surfaced at the end of camp,
Will Jergens again.
I would start by saying that there were actually two different pieces of value being created in this camp. One was the value of the experience for campers, for musicians, visual artists, devs. There was a lot of energy and care put into making this a camp for them to come and experience. And then there was the value of what was made during that camp. And there was a naivety in how camp was planned, in how value flow was set up.
I feel like a solution to that in the future is what we sort of, a solution we kind of came to, or conclusions we came to.
Fran, artist and guide in Camp Chaos.
Which was separating the two streams, the financial streams. Because I think having the experience be as good as possible for the campers and like maybe not exposing the inner workings, what's going wrong that week, like the conflicts that need to be resolved that week, so everyone can have a better experience. But because of that, like that money, that needs to be separate.
This whole value flow contention got us wondering, got us thinking if we recreated the same issues of the traditional Web 2 music industry. So we asked people in Chaos what their advice is to future headless bands out there. Maybe you're listening to this episode and you want to build something similar. Here is the time to take out your notebook and write down these juicy, juicy gold nuggets.
My takeaways would be this type of work, especially in collective work, is hard. Embrace that. Like that is what you're signing up for. Collective work.
Core team member Mark Rodito.
Personally, if there's something that you would like to do or want to take lead on, is consider everything, every step as a step towards your own personal evolution. Because shit is gonna scar you. Shit is gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's important to consider that as a learning experience. And at the same time too, it's important that you also take care of yourself. Holding healthy boundaries, being mindful. To go into this work of working with people, you gotta take care of yourself first. If you need healing, you need to actually prioritize that first before working with other people, because all the people that you're working with also need healing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think just like this is like a larger thing that I'm starting to see in like Web3 and decentralized communities and stuff.
Gradient's Songcamp core team member.
It's just easier to manage anything in smaller groups. It's very hard to apply the same sort of organizational communication styles that you do in small groups to large groups. And I feel like we're all trying to figure that out. And so we're using these smaller management systems on a larger scale, and they just kind of don't work. So it's thinking about that a little bit more deeply and figuring out how you can adapt that smaller group model to get maybe a larger consensus. So yeah, the learning would be find ways to sort of, I guess, have things happen in smaller groups, because at least that's manageable, and then you can, scale up decisions in that manner.
What kind of advice do you give to help do even better?
That's our very own executive producer Levi Downey talking with Matthew Chame.
Bring less people on. Do something with less people. Maybe don't even get to this size until like really get good at the smaller stuff. Also, having the right amount of support, because burnout is like a big thing. Definitely colored my experience of the aftermath in a big way. And I think a big one is staying tethered to like the original impetus for doing it. I think like with the success of projects is just going to come like new expectations from other people, some of which can be like really healthy and like new insights and interesting ways to like direct something. And others you might just like take on because of nature, like because of osmosis. You might just adopt new goals without even realizing they're there now and that they're informing your decisions. And I really think the only way to like the only filtration system you have is like that source, that creative source of what started the thing. That's it goes back to that like internal compass. And for me, it's sitting down and writing songs.
Throughout this entire moment of chaos, we learned so much through the pain and frustrations and mistakes made during this growth. It affected the network strongly. Many folks took a long break from chaos or simply moved on to other projects, maybe for the best.
It did slow our momentum a little bit.
Megan Kinney.
But I think in a beautiful way, because we're so used to in our society these things happening so fast. And we watch these companies, and even in the Web3 space, there was this like mindset of like get rich quick, or it's like a race to figure out how to do the next best thing. And I think it slowed us down, but for good purpose, because things that have really the greatest impact on society, meaningful changes, happen slowly. It takes time, and it takes conscious, intentional thought as you step forward. And if you watch nature, and things in nature happen slowly. The biggest trees take years and years and years to grow.
Of course, there's always room for improvement there, but I think we did what we set out to do. And all these sort of like frictions and tensions could all be seen as like lessons from chaos, which, speaking for me personally, all of these I will carry with me, as we do more collaborations with each other. For Camp 4, I would say that it's gonna be upgraded again. Like there's a new sort of like patch, to the value flow, taking in all the lessons here.
Again, to someone who's going to start, don't let any highlighting of like the negative stuff here create a fear in you to actually just start.
Will Jergens again.
Because the bad was uniquely magnified by the context. It by no means was this project bad. This project was amazing. This project was sweet. Music was incredible. The experience was generally incredible. The technology that was developed, the concepts that were developed, like there was a lot of good leadership in this project. The fact that it even started and finished was like insane.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about growing and trees and following the natural way our bodies want to grow, like what Kinney was saying. Not everyone stepped away. They really took this time to grow together or face their own internal battles and water their own seeds. Many Chaos members who were ignited by Chaos started working on spin-off projects like Chaos CC0, merch creation, organizing and performing in live events at the 2022 NFT NYC and in Los Angeles. Chaos held the uncomfortable truths of this conflict and decided to keep building together and showing up. Okay. Time to take a breath, smell a flower, or paint one. Next up, in segment 2, we will be sharing all the fun events and projects that this headless band that just won't quit has been up to. And you'll get a little sneak peek of what we have planned next for the future of Chaos.
Down. Way in the down. Way in the down. Way in the down. Way in the down.
Internet homegrown, no time zone, yeah we make our own tempo.
Strong like the 8-0, we gon' take the throne. Don't need no label,
cause they on the wrong tip for this bomb shit. Just ain't got the vibe.
We got that hive mind like swarm wise, together gon' thrive. Put my soul in a pack, sold it for a check. Networking on a flag, come and collect. Yeah, we building a new world. Block by block. They can't stop us, stop. Just stop and watch. They wanna muffle us down.
It's been about 9 months since Chaos went live. As you might expect, the 77 artists in our headless band haven't been sitting around doing nothing. Of course, we've all been working on our own projects, but the collective has been cooking up some fun stuff too. In fact, even before the official release of Chaos, there were some spin-off projects in the works, one of which was an experiment in CCO, otherwise known as Creative Commons. Plus, we've done several in real-life performances, a couple in New York City last summer and one in Los Angeles December of 2022. Let's start with the CCO project known as CCO Labs, or Collabs. When the official Chaos Camp was coming to a close, several band members wanted to keep the creative momentum going and found a worthy outlet experimenting with CCO art. For those unfamiliar, CCO stands for Creative Commons Zero, which is a legal framework allowing creators of intellectual property to release the commercial rights into the public domain, essentially allowing anyone anywhere to use the works in any way they want. It's been gaining some momentum in the visual NFT space, but hasn't been experimented too much in the music NFT realm yet.
The CC0 project, it wasn't even after Chaos kind of happened. While Chaos was still happening, I could feel in the Chaos calls a lot of that intoxicating energy.
That's artist and Chaos band member Steph, aka Don't Mess with Juan.
It was just the end of Act 3, I believe. And a lot of us creatives were kind of getting released from kind of working. And it was more core team working about release.
This group of 20 or so camp members, led by Don't Mess With Juan, created 16 songs and 10 artworks in a 2-week minicamp. These were first paired with 3D cloaks for a fashion and music NFT collaboration with artist Emma Jane, then released as Mixtape Volume 1 that many folks collected. Thank you. They also live as one-of-ones on Catalog, and the stems are publicly available with an active remix cooperation in the works this spring 2023. Shout out to the other team members continuing this spin-off experiment with Steph, Kevin Neaton, Gradient, David Young, Private Woman, Levi Downey, Michael Onabolu, Shamanic, and others. If you want to keep tabs on the CCO project, visit cc0lab.songcamp.band to hear the music and maybe even use the public domain stems in your next project.
Once our camp was over, many of the musicians, operators, and other artists felt this energy, this urge. Eris was surging through them to make more music and explore what a performance from this headless band might look like. So pretty soon after Chaos went live, the Chaos crew showed up in full force, almost, at NFT NYC to take the stage.
From the band called Chaos, performing all over the world right now. From Montreal, Toronto, the UK. So give it up for Chaos, and we'll be up shortly for a live performance for you.
June was the NFT NYC event, and we that was the very first Chaos performance. A bunch of people showed up to NFT NYC, but we got invited by Blockchain Brett and Cooper to do a combined event and feature as Chaos for the very first time.
Gradient, Songcamp core team member.
And not only were we able to perform as Chaos for Blockchain Brett's event, which was the very first time Chaos all got together, but we also had the opportunity to perform a second time in that same week for Karma and V's Wave World event. So it was a dual-pronged thing in New York. Most of us had only worked with each other online. And so for a lot of us, this was the time where we all got together and got to experience each other in 3D for the very first time.
After being connected for so long, it almost felt like we were meeting each other in 4D, to take it a little bit further.
And so the way I describe it is, it feels like you're meeting a friend that you've known your entire life, but your body doesn't recognize them, right? And so your body and like the emotional energy that happens from meeting someone is still there. And so it was a really cool feeling, which is like, I feel like I'm meeting you for the first time and I have all this energy and I want to get to know you because I don't know you, but I do. And so that experience could translate to a lot of other people in the room.
We're part of Headless Chaos. We've never done this before. We've literally not practiced. Everything. I know we're used to explain to each other, but I'm going to need everyone to take a step forward. Let's fill in the front here. Come on.
And yeah, we did have this thought of like, let's be the first ones to book Chaos, and Blockchain Brett Koopa beat us, which is totally okay. But it was cool to do 2 performances in 1 week.
That's Violetta, artist and member of Chaos. She was a part of the Alchemy team. She and her partner Karma lead a community called Wave World. They threw this big, massive, community engaging, beautiful event and party. And of course, with so much excitement, they invited Chaos to perform and headline.
I think from the audience perspective, being at both gigs, I could tell, because even just talking to people, like they were looking forward to seeing what Chaos was going to be like live.
That's Karma, artist, producer, also a part of the Alchemy team in Chaos, and Wave World creator and Violetta's fiance. Congratulations.
Yeah, I remember like being behind the Chaos members, like was mentioned, where it felt like just like whoever was in Chaos and was there was part of the performance in some way. And then it really gave me that like collective vibe of like Brockhampton or whatnot, where they're just switching the mics to each other. Everyone has their part. And it just felt like something really special. And even after the Chaos performance, I remember people coming up to Chaos members and myself after it, and we're just like, oh, this was pretty awesome to see this like happen for the first time live. So I remember it was like great energy during Chaos.
I liked how there was like that green room in the music NFT movement event, and all the Chaos crew was in the green room before the performance. We're all getting like pumped.
Well, we were all getting glitter on our faces.
We were all getting glittered up. That's right.
I kept saying I'm with the band. We had like Chaos groupies, you know, but they were just like other Chaos members. We're like, we're with the band.
There was also a really cool virtual element to this event too, led by artist and Chaos member Shamanic.
We were going to do a audio-visual, live jammed experience to open up for Chaos, the artist that's on the ground, by introducing kind of the character of Eris. Me, Michael, and Steph, we practiced a live jam together around this kind of concept of Eris appearing. We took some Chaos samples taken from different calls. In the end, I think we created kind of a magical moment, knowing that it was being broadcast into New York and into this space.
The NFT NYC Chaos shows and chill moments before and after were like a breath of fresh air, especially after having just like a few weeks before launched Chaos. It was a moment to celebrate, sing, dance together, and just be with each other. Though not everybody was able to make it to the event, and folks on the West Coast were getting a little bit antsy to experience what us East Coast Chaos peeps were sharing about in our Discord channels and on Twitter.
For the Chaos members more on the US West Coast side of the world, we had huge FOMO, and this eventually manifested into a Chaos performance in Los Angeles.
We are at Sector Factory in downtown LA. I'm watching Kenny and Josh sound check right now. I just ate a bunch of burritos. Maybe my breath smells like garlic right now. I'm so sorry.
I'm standing very close to your breath right now.
The LA show, I think initially it started off as an idea on one of our Song Camp LA monthly hangs.
That's Song Camp core team member Mark Radito.
Remember, we were hanging out at Kenny's balcony, and Nathan and Tiffany from Sector Factory that was there. And they were just floated this idea, you know what, we have this space, we have projectors, we have a sound system on there. Why don't we make a show? What would it look like to actually have a Chaos show in LA? So yeah, December 10th was that show, and it was an amazing show.
The show was a frickin' blast! Big shout out to Sector Factory, Will and Abram at OX Splits, June Shine and Offshoot Beer for sponsoring the event and helping bring it to life, the immersive showcase of Chaos featuring huge custom visuals by Peace Node, Chaos song artwork, and of course, lots of music. Several Chaos members opened for the Headless Band, including L.Ariel, Kenny and Josh, and Yahtzee. I myself had the opportunity to sing some vocals for one of the Headless Chaos Band songs, and I was so stoked. It was such a cool opportunity. We had super special surprising guests, including Will and Abram from OX Splits and Mr. Heartbeat himself, Matthew Chame, who hopped through a portal, through the internet, through Discord, and then just arrived at the Chaos LA event.
You too, bro. How could I miss this? Oh my god. You gotta hide away until your murmurs. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of hitting you guys up.
Another fun thing we did right before the Chaos Band took the stage is we did an IRL Chaos Pack giveaway raffle. It was a lot of fun.
So there's 2 packs. We got Chaos Pack number 2411.
Which one should we open?
2412. Levi,
What should we open? What do you all think? Which one?
Which one?
It was the goodest of vibes and the funnest of times, and just so special celebrating all the humans that made this project happen.
Especially, I remember this distinctly, like right when we finished, we all went to sort of our green room and hung out, and we were there till 4 a.m. I think that was really, really nice. So for me, like that was the highlight, even though the performance was insane, the energy in the room was insane. You know, as we were leading up to the last couple of songs, switching over into rave mode, there was a lot of like energy there, and it was really cool to experience that in person. But for me personally, it was the hang afterwards where nobody wanted to leave. We all just kept talking to each other, and just like, I don't know, bonded more deeply.
He's like, let's unmute ourselves and like give a shout out.
Can y'all unmute yourself?
Basically, we unmuted tonight.
LOL. So that was the LA show. I was there myself, can confirm it was fun. Lots of good drinks. Can't wait for the next live event, and more on this a little later.
Dude, we forgot to mention the merch.
The merchandise. Our visual design team was able to put together these amazing Chaos shirts and express ship them to LA just in time for the event, led by Private Woman and Kevin. Remember that Chaos Common Pool that we created? Well, Kevin on the visual team put together a proposal to fund a couple visual artwork projects, including creating a merch.
So the proposal had two components. One was playing with the idea of issuing NFTs that would unlock access to the physical paintings, was one component of the project. And then the other component was experimenting with merch. Eric and I had a great rapport through Chaos and looking for opportunities to continue to collaborate. And so merch was a natural, organic way to build that collaborative extension of the project.
I feel like there was like a bunch of people just kind of dropping in the chat saying they wanted merch. And I was like, yeah, just hit me up. I'm like, I work at a print shop. Let's like get this thing going. And it took, everybody's busy, and it just took some time to kind of like organize it all.
Erica, aka Private Woman, and Kevin worked together on the development and execution of Chaos merch just in time to ship to Los Angeles for our IRL event.
When the live event was announced for LA in December, it was pretty obvious like that would be a natural way to do the first merch drop. And so that created some like natural milestones for us to work towards. And that really made us hustle too. It's been great in terms of we were able to receive funding to pay for the shirts and the printing costs and shipping and then the physical paintings that they're all framed. And one thing the proposal didn't envision, which was a beautiful development, was an opportunity to partner with Super Rare. And we were part of the space race with Super Rare. And we placed in the top 10, which means we get to have our own Chaos gallery on their platform.
So as you can tell, Chaos has been pretty damn busy these last few months. This community of artists keep building together brick by metaverse brick. We've had our challenges, our ups and downs, our sideways, our slantways. But there's still momentum in this 77-person headless band called Chaos, with whoever decides that they have energy to play.
There's clearly so much love still here.
That's Yahtzee, also known as Max.
It was like a burst of love during Chaos, and now it's still here, right? Like every time we get together again, like you feel it. Like there's an energy that you kind of just tap right back in, like you kind of dip right back into that current. The Chaos current.
So, where do we put that energy and love? What's next for Chaos? Do we have some exciting news for you? Stick around for a sneak peek of what will be the most ambitious and climactic event of Chaos yet. We're doing something big in the Big Apple, New York City on April 12th, 2023. You're gonna want to hear this, peeps. Stick around for the bonus segment we're calling What is Club Chaos?
I've been dealing with my feelings. It's been healing. Confident, all this courage a compliment. Creating change with this common sense. Speaking straight to the spark within. Hey, I've been dealing
We have so many cool chaos things happening in the next few weeks. Matt, what's happening?
Yeah, chaos is very busy. We're dropping right here, right now. We're dropping radio episodes from Chaos Radio Team. We've got the Chaos Gallery opening, a super rare independent gallery space devoted solely to chaos to release some of the one-of-one artwork created during the camp. We've got merch being created right now for Club Chaos, which is kind of this big moment that we're all preparing for in Brooklyn, New York on April 12th, 2023 at Public Records, where we all get to come into one room and scream and hug and dance and also burn all unminted packs.
Whoa, what does that mean? What is a pack burning?
You've never been to a pack burning ceremony before?
I don't think I have. I think it's my first time. Like, what should I expect?
Well, there's the on-chain event and the off-chain event, and we're trying to line those up pretty close to each other. The on-chain event, the actual technical side of what's happening, is currently Chaos packs have been minting. I was looking at the dates to April 12th, which will be the day we actually burn the packs. That'll be 10 months and 10 days since June 3rd, 2022, when we first opened up Chaos pack minting. In that time, over 2,400 packs have been minted, but all unminted packs, the 2,500 or so that still are available for minting, will forever be unmintable, closed, and the keys to putting those packs for sale will be burned.
So, this is really a climax of chaos, a turning point. After the packs are burned, then the only available chaos NFTs are the ones that have already been collected. No more and no less forever.
That's what's happening on-chain. So off-chain at the show, a pack burning ceremony is being built by people right here on this call. Mark Kramer, Boy Untitled, Sarmad, Gradient, Will Juergens, as well as others participating in creating this audio-visual immersive experience at Club Chaos to celebrate this very significant event in the Chaos story.
Do you want to describe more in detail, like about the audio visuals, what it's going to look like, and who's performing?
I can talk about it. I don't want to give too much away, but I can speak spiritually to what this experience is intended to be.
That's Mark, aka Boy Untitled. He's leading show production for this event.
Club Chaos, the entire night, just energetically is going to be building to this pack burning moment. The core of which is going to be an hour and a half, 2-hour DJ set that is all centered around chaos music, both original, remixed, AI remixed, the cacophony of all the different pieces of chaos. And the immersive portion of this will also include taking lore that Will has created for Headless Chaos. That was kind of the bedrock and the foundation of all the music that we created. That's going to be woven throughout the set from an audio standpoint. And then we're also working with Piece Note to come up with new visuals that will be projected in the space. We're going to swirl all those pieces together, basically partying inside of a chaos pack. That's the vibe. That's the best way I can put it.
We are currently also in the works of bringing a piece of this to people who will not be in the room IRL in New York, but will be able to actually experience at least this ceremony moment on the internet. So we're actually going to be adding a page to the chaos.build website, which will be at chaos.build/burn, that people will be able to experience some of the visual elements that are going to be created for this experience online. And then also, or just directly going to the Songcamp Instagram, where we will be sharing an IG live of the pack burning ceremony, essentially. So that's how people can tune in.
If you imagine after the event, so the party has happened, we've all danced and hugged, things are winding down, maybe you're in the plane going home.
Levi, Downey.
That moment of reflection when everything's over, what are you thinking about next? What happens after chaos? Is chaos ending? Is it a new chapter in Songcamp? Where's your mind at?
I can say something. I think as a participant who started their Web3 journey in Songcamp, like what I'm definitely going to be already am reflecting on is the most potent utility of Web3 is community, period, for me. And I think that Song Camp exemplifies that. I think that the Chaos Experiment really showed that to me in a way that was tangible and visceral and accessible. And it is certainly the driving force that keeps me in this space. And so to have the opportunity to close out that energy, I think for all of us is just gonna light that little fire to power us and catapult us into whatever this next experiment is.
It's been a little while and I miss you. I know we went out of style and I can't help but think about you.
For me, I definitely see it like a closing of a chapter and an opening of a new one. I think it like a graduation in some way, something that I'm reflecting on. And we've spoken about this in different modes of like, do camps end? How do you end a camp? Usually, good parties need to end. So what ends and what continues is still, I think, an open question in just like the camp model. But I think when it comes to Chaos, like I feel like there's a graduation here into a new chapter. The project lives on. Not only that, but the packs will close, and I think like the attention can focus on the songs and packs that do exist, and the game, the on-chain immutable game that exists there forever.
We have covered a whole lot of ground today, a deep dive into the connections and resolution around the split and the salary concerns that were raised. We caught up on all the happenings in the Chaos community over the past several months, and now we leave you with an invitation. Get on your plane, train, boat, or bike and join us at Club Chaos on April 12th, 2023 at Public Records in Brooklyn, New York, as we celebrate the next chapter together. We'll be back in a few weeks with our final episode 8 to share a little recap of the events. See you soon. Bye.
This episode was brought to you by the Chaos Proposal and Governance System and our fearless Chaos Squad fam, juggling life and radio, Pluto entering Aquarius, Aries season, what, fire it up, babies, and Web3 adventures.
This episode was executive produced and edited by Levi Downey, co-narrated by Iara and LosA, that's me, production help from Julie Kwak, theme music by Josh Lippy, and mastering by Conor Dalton. Special thanks to the more than 15 Chaos members who we interviewed for this episode. Thanks to the Song Camp core team, and of course, all our fellow Chaos members and supporters who made this episode possible. See you at Club Chaos on April 12th in Brooklyn, New York City.
3, 2, 1.